Could you do a little bit of self-introduction?
Yeah, so Keith D'Amelio. I've had the fortune to work in pro sports for, not only in pro sports, but with professional athletes for over 20 years now, in a variety of capacities. But background is in sports medicine as an undergrad. Master's degree was in more strength and conditioning and sport performance, and then have a PhD in applied sports science. So, from Boston originally, but have not lived back in Boston since 2005, and have kind of bopped around since then between Toronto, Stanford, and now living up here in Portland, Oregon for the last 12 years.
Awesome. Thank you. I mean, I know you, like you're a very popular person, but thanks for the introduction.
Absolutely.
And so second question, could you describe your journey to become who you are right now? And what are the three most important things from your experience?
Yeah, I mean, my journey's been an interesting one. And I think to where I am today, right now, as I sit here, there's been a lot of things that I think have helped me get here and have been part of that journey. But again, as I said, grew up in Boston, have always been involved in sports in some capacity, played every sport there is growing up. Did my undergraduate degree out at Arizona State. So we're a few miles from where you're sitting right now, Steve. It's a long way from Boston, but I knew I wanted to get away from Boston for college and just experience. I've always sort of had a little bit of a explorer mindset and love to be out on my own. So went out to Arizona State, and with no real intent of what I actually wanted to do for a career or whatnot. And was fortunate enough that at the time, Arizona State had an amazing sports medicine and athletic training program, and kind of fell into that and really ran with it. In that process, there was one which actually speaks to some of the most important things, and one of the most important things is in this journey, right? And I had a class, and my professor at the time said, what the assignment was to interview somebody whose job you would like. And I've always liked basketball. I reached out to the athletic trainer with the Phoenix Suns, Aaron Nelson. Aaron is now with the New Orleans Pelicans. But Aaron, it was his first year as the athletic trainer, the head athletic trainer. And I just did an interview with Aaron about his job and everything. And at the end of the interview, I asked Aaron if he had an internship program that I could, be a part of. And he said they did not, but that they were starting it the following season. And he said, look, you are at the top of the list. Like, it's been great to talk with you. He said, go home for the summer, get as much basketball experience as you can so you can come back and you can hit the ground running with us. I said, okay, great. So I went back to Boston for the summer, and I left a voicemail for the Boston Celtics head athletic trainer. Kind of told my story, told him why, what I was doing with the Suns potentially. And he called me, and I asked if they needed any help. And he called me back, and he said, actually, we could use your help this summer. So yes, please come down and help us. So went, volunteered all summer long. Had a great experience. Went back out to Phoenix, arrived and called Aaron and said, okay, I'm back. When do I start? And he said, oh, while you were gone, I gave the internship to somebody else. And I was devastated, obviously. And the Celtics found out, and they said, when you graduate, you have a job with us. And so I was fortunate enough that as soon as I graduated my undergrad, I went right back with the Celtics and started as the assistant athletic trainer with them, which was great. But in doing that, after the first season, I realized I didn't want to just be an athletic trainer or just be on that medical side of the house. I toyed with the idea of going back to like medical school, and even being a physician's assistant, which is, not quite a doctor, but you do have a lot of the responsibilities of a doctor, and certainly more so than an athletic trainer. But then I even thought, like, okay, that's not what I want to do. I really want to work in helping athletes perform their best. And I started a relationship with the strength coach at the time with the Celtics, Sean Brown, who's still a very good friend. So I started my master's degree while I was with the Celtics, but on the sports performance side and strength and conditioning. And then that's what I kind of gravitated towards more. Like, how can I help athletes from one, maybe never even getting hurt or helping them be as healthy as they can. But even if they get hurt, how can I help them return to performance in performing at a high level? So, fortunate I finished that up and was fortunate enough to go to Toronto as the head strength and conditioning coach. At the time, I was the youngest strength and conditioning coach ever hired in the NBA at 26 years old, which I was probably in a little bit over my head at the time, but was an amazing 4 years as the head strength coach there. Learned a lot. Left Toronto, and went out to Stanford University, where at Stanford I was the director of performance with men's basketball there for 2 seasons, which again taught me a lot in terms of coming from 10 years in the NBA to now dealing with collegiate athletes and the amount of time you have with them and how much more you can do with them from a developmental standpoint. In that time I was kind of doing some consulting with Nike, but ended up leaving and coming up here to Portland, Oregon, where I've been for the last 12 years and able to kind of work with athletes and teams across the globe, across sports, in all capacities. So it's kind of been a lot of different twists and turns in my journey here, but very exciting in some ways, and all it's so intertwined in terms of the different ways in which decisions have led me to where I am now as well.
So you're now with Nike for 12 years as a performance director. So as a director of performance, could you describe what exactly you do at job on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean that's I can, and it's all I can, and I can't, and I say I can't not to be secretive in some ways, but to basically say every day is different, right? Every day, not only with my role at Nike, every day is a little bit different, right? What tomorrow brings maybe nothing like what yesterday brought. So. Again, like I said, I'm fortunate enough to work with athletes and teams across the globe in a variety of capacities. And that can be things from very, very low touch, just conversations, to overseeing all aspects of an athlete and their performance, right? And even if it's not myself doing it hands-on, I will bring in the right people to help with their domain expertise, but I will help manage that process. And that, in my mind, that's what a director of performance does. They're not always the one that are doing things. They are in some cases, but they're not always. But they are the ones that are helping make sure that there is a clear vision, that everybody is on the same page, that everybody's doing the job that they're supposed to be doing, and that the athlete stays at the center of those conversations in that plan. Because I think what happens a lot of times, or it can happen, certainly in the team side, but even in the private sector on the individual athlete side, is everyone wants to be the star. Everyone is, if it's the physio, they want their time to shine. If it's the on-field coach, they want their time to shine. And the problem is the athlete is the one that ends up suffering. So my role as the director of performance, not only with the athlete in my role at Nike, but even in my work, kind of previous working in that capacity, is to just make sure everyone is aligned and that there's clear communication, there's a clear vision, and that everybody is doing the job that they are supposed to be doing to help that athlete perform their best day in and day out.
Could you describe your holistic approach to sports performance in general?
Yeah, I think that what is the quote is, have strong opinions, but loosely held. And what I take that to mean is, I have strong opinions about how I feel about certain things in regards to training, right? Like there's, whether that be certain exercises, a certain philosophical approach, a certain modality, whatever it is, right? I have opinions. I have strong opinions in some cases. But I don't have an opinion so strong that I'm unwilling to change my mind. If something better or something that makes more sense comes along, right? So I think that's really an underpinning thought of my, sort of holistic approach, in that, I'm never married to one thing, right? I think I have a general philosophical approach in terms of how I think about movement, how I think about certain things in an athlete's development, how I actually go about, thinking about what does this athlete need and how are they coming to me? What is their sport like? But I also recognize there is not one thought process that works. A lot of different things work, right? It's finding out what is the best fit for not only this athlete, but for the needs and the goals that we're trying to put in place. I think when you add the holistic approach, that to me is just having the mindset that everything is connected, right? It is not just, and that's even what I was just saying there in my earlier response, is it's not just, oh, we need to do something, medically with the physio for this. Okay, well, if let's say the athlete is injured, right? And this is where my mind works from a holistic standpoint. And that is just like what are all of the aspects that could be involved in this athlete and performing their best, right? Okay, they're injured. Yes, they need treatment. Yes, we need to get them strong again, and we need to do proper rehab. But are we thinking about their recovery and their sleep? Because that's going to have an impact on how fast they're recovering. Are we thinking about their nutrition? Because that's obviously going to have an impact on how they're going to recover and heal from this injury. Are we thinking about the mental aspect of things? Because that's going to have an impact, right? And that's one very specific example. But those are all of the aspects that have to go in and have to be controlled for and managed to help that athlete perform their best. And I think sometimes those different areas, if all of those are different people, they only think about themselves. They don't think about the connectivity between all of them and how all of them overlap and interplay to help that athlete. And so for me, having that mindset of an absolute holistic care for that athlete is paramount to really helping them perform their best.